Hey Chris, it's Yanni. How you doing? Just looking at your PR very quickly for this week. You've got some great stuff over here. I really like the staging and all the little things that you've done on the actual character. Something that just jumps out at me is that because of the chef's hat that he's wearing, it just looks like he's really tiny in a much larger scene, which is fine, because he does come quite up close. But I almost feel that, because you've put that chef's hat on him, he looks just so much, smaller inside the frame as opposed to your reference that was kind of like pretty tight on the character. But it can still work. I really like, the gesture with the knife, and how he kind of like comes forward and towards camera. That's really good. I think there's a few things, in your posing that you could probably sweeten up a little bit. And I think the first thing that I see is kind of like in frame one, really, that first pose. I think you could be doing something else with his left hand. And instead of just having it lying out of shot, you could have him actually, you know, either starting holding the knife or actually having that hand to be visible in shot. I think it would just change things up a little bit. And also, you could think about the silhouette of the character as well, because currently you've got the hand, it's right on top of the body, which is right next to the arm. You might want to see if you can actually find another pose that kind of like gets the silhouette just a little bit clearer. I think that in your dialogue, there's a few kind of like beats in the actual dialogue that you might want to try and force into the poses a bit more to clear the pantomiming up a little bit. Because currently, if I look through this without sound, it's it isn't reading specifically as something that's either threatening or that he's trying to be quiet or at least in the main key poses I'm not getting kind of like the idea of the beats that I'm seeing in the actual dialogue, but coming through that, I think that kind of like in the first beat where you've got, that he's going crazy, and he's trying to establish that idea, if something's wrong, you'd almost want a bit more of a worried look in the face and maybe, little details like the head maybe twisted aside, like he's not really understanding what's going on, and that's why he's asking it. So those are little things that you can throw in there. And then when he comes to the section where he says, "I'm just saying," you have him come towards camera, but I think you need to push the pose in frame 84. So it's just, you need to, sorry, not 84, it's, bum, bum, bum. So between 81 and 85, where you've got, "I'm just saying," the saying pose is fine, but coming towards frame, bum, 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 68 actually. In frame 68, you'd want another pose in there where he's just trying to come closer and actually, whisper something to that person because his voice goes down as well. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that, he's got to be really close to camera, but you can take the hand that's closest to screen, which is his left hand, and actually rise it up a little bit and almost like say, "I'm just saying," as a bit more of a whisper. Again, trying to put, the body language and trying to push that, see if that actually makes the pose just a little bit more readable and makes it a little bit clearer. Because although, it'll work as soon as you put the dialogue on top, I'm not sure if you can, I think you can push this a little further. When he points towards the actual, uh, what's his name, camera in frame, I won't even try to find the beginning of this pose, but it's about frame 128. In that pose, he's kind of like he's pointing towards the actual camera, and I think that it's one of those things that in your reference you're really pointing centrally. I think you can offset that a little bit to one side as well, so instead of pointing this way, you lean over and you're pointing this way. It might mean that you might have to drift your eye line for the shot slightly off to one side, but that could probably work fairly well in frame 128. And then when he comes back up, one of the nice details that you had in your reference was how, he pushed himself, you pushed yourself off from the tabletop. And you've got that really well in the right hand that's holding the knife, all across frame, 185, 190, all the way up to 200. But the left hand, which is actually palm down, you had a very nice push off with the fingers there, which although you're in blocking, when you come up, that hand's very much locked onto the actual surface, and I think that probably a better pose would be that just that moment when you push off. So instead of having the arm bent there for a key, it's really that moment when you push off over there. Okay, and yeah, the last thing that really jumps out at me is really frame 223, because your eye line goes straight into the middle of camera, and he's got kind of like the knife like this, and that pose is really straight. It almost looks twinned, although the hands are in separate, poses. They're not twinned at all, but he's just so straight in the shot that it just, I think a little bit of the believability dies there as well. And also you're always looking slightly to the screen left throughout the entire shot, and in frame 123 he's just looking dead on into the actual camera, and that's just, I think that pose really needs to change. You need to get it much more kind of like along the lines of frame 240. You're going into that pose over there, so you almost want to have, that side, that's something I need to know about. That little kind of like banging on the chest, or, poking the chest with the knife, is a nice little detail to have there. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Good start to the week. There's a load of things that still need to fall into place, but I'm pretty sure it'll be looking great by the end of the week. Have a good one, man. See ya. Bye.